What if everything we've assumed about our existence in the cosmos is incorrect? Did you realize that there are billions of planets in our own galaxy, yet we act as if we are the sole intelligent beings? But what if a visitor arrived that proves otherwise? I want to discuss a topic that fundamentally undermines our assumptions. I distinctly recall the first time I encountered the name 3 Atlas. It was poetic, almost mythical, until I came to understand its true implications. Out in the distant reaches of our solar system, a colossal object was gliding toward us silently. It wasn't merely another rocket floating in space. It represented something much more significant, something that appeared to have purpose. As the initial images began to appear on their screens, astronomers worldwide watched in astonishment. A radiant mass moved with mathematical precision, tracing a path so exact that it seemed less like chance and more like a signature of intelligence itself. Even the most skeptical scientists sensed it. This was no ordinary visitor. Initially, it was regarded as an interesting anomaly, a rare interstellar traveler akin to those we've encountered before. However, within days, the data began to defy rational explanation. This object was enormous. Estimates ranged from 6 to 9 miles in diameter, approximately the same size as Manhattan Island. Its surface glimmered with a metallic sheen that no telescope could classify, and it was soaring at speeds exceeding 130,000 miles per hour. At such velocities, it could traverse from New York to Los Angeles in just over a minute. The human mind struggles to comprehend such figures, yet we all recognize one truth. Nothing moves in such a manner unless it has a purpose. NASA's preliminary reports confirmed what everyone secretly feared. 3 Atlas was not constrained by the sun's gravitational influence. It wasn't navigating random parabolic arcs like a common comet. Instead, it traversed the solar system as if it were following a predetermined route. The sun's gravitational force should have altered its course, slowed it down, or even captured it, but none of that occurred. It continued onward, steady and unaffected. This posed a significant challenge to traditional models. When data contradicts the hypothesis must be questioned. We see this phenomenon in comets regularly. They outgas, creating a thrust that propels them. However, 3 Atlas exhibited no coma, no tail, and no outgassing, and yet it was accelerating, or more accurately, not decelerating as expected. That's when speculation started to circulate. What if it wasn't manipulated by gravity, but guided by control? As day turned into night with unending observations, theories accumulated. Some proposed that it may have passed near a black hole, gaining speed through gravity assist. Others theorized it could be composed of exotic matter, something that defies our current physics. But none of these theories stood up to scrutiny. The precision of its motion was too intentional. There were no deviations, no random shifts, and no fragments breaking away, like one would expect from a comet or asteroid. It was as if every microsecond of its movement had been calculated long before it entered our vicinity. That's when my own work regained significance. The Harvard astrophysicist who once suggested that Oumuamua, the first non-interstellar object, may not be natural. My theory had previously been dismissed as fringe speculation. Yet now, with 3 Atlas, those same scientists began to reference my work. What other explanation could there be for an object of such magnitude moving with that level of precision? When I examined the orbital projections, I felt a deep unease in my chest. The line representing 3 Atlas wasn't erratic like comet trajectories. It was smooth and elegant, reminiscent of a master painter's stroke. It would pass near Mars, then Earth, then Venus, finally skimming past Jupiter before disappearing into the cold. 4 planets, 4 opportunities for observation. The sequence was flawless, too flawless. Statistically, the odds of a natural object following such a pathway are less than 1 in 20,000. This implies that if 20,000 interstellar visitors traversed our solar system, only 1 might randomly adopt a similar course, and that singular object was currently en route to us. The ramifications were too significant to ignore. This was no mere rock on autopilot. This was reconnaissance. Each evening, we aimed our telescopes at the heavens, uncovering new layers of strangeness. Its brightness didn't fluctuate like a tumbling object reflecting sunlight. Instead, it pulsed rhythmically, almost like a heartbeat, following a pattern that repeated every 47 seconds. The signal wasn't strong enough to be deemed a transmission, yet it was unmistakable. Something on 3 Atlas was active. However, the scientific community was divided. Some insisted it was merely coincidence, projecting their anxieties and fantasies onto a piece of cosmic debris. Others, including myself, advocated for an open-minded approach. If you hear hoofbeats in the desert, I've always said, don't immediately assume it's a horse. Sometimes it's something we've never encountered before. What troubled me most wasn't its presence, it was its timing. 3 Atlas had entered the inner solar system precisely when our telescopes, sensors, and data infrastructures were capable of detecting it. A century ago, it would have slipped by unnoticed. A millennium ago, it might have been considered myth. But today, as our civilization finally possessed the ability to observe, it arrived. Coincidence or choreography? The closer it drew, the more its course seemed intentional. The arc around Mars was gentle, grazing the planet's orbit from 17 million miles away. Then it approached Earth, 167 million miles distant, positioned perfectly behind the Sun. When it reached its closest point, Earth would be on the far side of the solar disk, making direct observation nearly impossible, as if it had deliberately timed its approach to evade detection. For the first time, I experienced something uncommon in science: fear. Not of the unknown, but of the known that we refuse to confront. Because if this were a probe, a device engineered for interstellar travel, it implied that we were not alone and never had been. I observed as NASA analysts simulated its trajectory using high-precision orbital data. Frame by frame, they documented the angles, velocity shifts, and minute variations in light reflection. Again, there it was. Consistency. Every adjustment aligned perfectly with a trajectory calculated for optimal efficiency, conserving energy and maintaining a line of sight to critical planets. It was behaving, in essence, like a machine. By then, even the skeptics fell silent. A report leaked from a Harvard press briefing stated, 3 Atlas exhibits behavior inconsistent with non-natural phenomena. Artificial propulsion cannot be dismissed. It was the kind of statement that could shake the world if publicly stated. I remember staring at the holographic display of its path, a glowing line weaving through the planet's orbits like a silent observer. The data was indisputable. This entity had purpose. It wasn't just passing by, it was observing. Then came the true revelation. A simulation indicated that following its close pass by Jupiter, 3 Atlas wouldn't escape the solar system at all. Instead, it would slow down as though engaging invisible brakes and enter a stable orbit around the Sun somewhere between Jupiter and Mars. That orbit would allow for a constant, unobstructed view of Earth, a perfect vantage point. I attempted to explain to my students that achieving such precision was beyond any gravitational serendipity. To decelerate an object of that mass from interstellar speeds to a solar orbit would necessitate unfathomable energy that no known natural phenomenon could supply. To accomplish that would require control, engineering, and intention. It's conceivable that this is indeed mere coincidence, and science must maintain skepticism. However, I have discovered that skepticism can sometimes devolve into a form of blindness. For if my hypothesis holds true, if 3 Atlas originated from another star system, then it departed its home 8,000 years ago, almost concurrently with the dawn of our ancestors, learning to construct cities, cultivate land, and inscribe their symbols upon clay. While humanity was mastering fire and language, perhaps someone far away was already aware of us. This realization chills me to my core, because if they knew, if they observed the faint glow of our fires across the vast emptiness, then they have been watching for millennia. 3 Atlas would not represent a beginning, but a return. This leads me to the most haunting possibility of all, the dark force hypothesis. It's a concept that transforms our cosmic optimism into existential dread. Picture the universe not as an open expanse of allies, but as a thick, dark forest at night. Every civilization acts as a hunter, and every shadow conceals another consciousness, listening, waiting. The only rule is silence. The moment you reveal your presence, You risk everything. Speak, and you could be found. Be discovered, and you could be destroyed. What if 3 Atlas isn't here to make contact, but rather to affirm, to verify whether the noise we've made, our radio waves, our probes, our endless hellos into the void has marked us as a target? In our innocence, humanity may have made the one mistake no intelligent species should ever make: announcing ourselves. As I analyze the data, the flawless trajectory, the synchronized timing, the calculated silence, I ponder if we have awakened something ancient. We believed we were the adventurers reaching into the stars. What if, from the very outset, we were the ones being explored? The most disquieting thought isn't that 3 Atlas is a ship, a machine, or even a probe. It's that it might be a reflection of our own curiosity, ambition, and ignorance. We dispatched golden records into space, proclaiming, "We are here." Perhaps 8,000 years later, the universe has finally responded. Now, as 3 Atlas continues its journey behind the sun, where no telescope can detect it, we wait. The silence is overwhelming. The data flows steadily, but the signal, the faint rhythm that recurs every 47 seconds, still pulses across the cosmic backdrop. Is it a heartbeat, a countdown, or merely our imagination reverberating in the void? Whatever it may be, it compels us to confront a truth as timeless as the stars. The universe may not be desolate. It may simply be waiting, observing, and for the first time in human history, we may be the ones under scrutiny. We are on the brink of a discovery that could redefine what it means to be human. If 3 Atlas is artificial, then its creators have mastered concepts of energy, time, and distance that are beyond our current comprehension. Yet, if it's natural, if all this is nothing but coincidence, then the universe is still far stranger than we've ever envisioned. In any case, everything we believed we knew about our status among the stars has transformed. As I put away my notes, one final thought looms over me, a question that has haunted me since the first mention of the name. What if 3 Atlas isn't approaching us, but is waiting for us to approach it? When the object vanished behind the sun, the world encompassed silence. Astronomers stared at blank screens, anticipating its reemergence, wishing for proof that it still existed. Yet amid that silence, an overwhelming realization emerged. For the first time, humanity was not merely an observer of the universe. The universe might be observing back. For weeks, we received no data. The sun's glare erased all traces of 3 Atlas from our instruments. However, during that silence, an unusual signal began to resonate across deep space monitoring arrays. It was faint, nearly indistinguishable from the background noise, but it repeated every 47 seconds, just as before. Initially, engineers suspected interference, maybe just an echo from an old transmission bouncing through interplanetary space. But the pattern was too clean, too consistent, too intentional. Someone or something was still out there, signaling. NASA, ESA, and various independent observatories rushed to verify this anomaly. The results were unsettling. The pulse didn't originate from any known satellite, asteroid, or planetary source, but specifically from the region where 3 Atlas had vanished behind the sun. The pulse wasn't random either. Encoded within its frequency were mathematical sequences, prime numbers, geometric ratios, fractal harmonics, all fundamental aspects of universal physics. It was as if whoever produced it aimed to communicate in the one language every intelligent being understands: mathematics. When I first examined those waveforms, I felt a chill that no scientific training could dispel. We had always assumed contact would manifest through words, images, or a clear voice reverberating across the stars. Yet, this was something else: silent, structured, ancient. It was communication distilled to its purest form. The more we analyzed it, the more we recognized it wasn't a message meant for us to decipher. It was a declaration. We see you. Some colleagues referred to it as the cosmic handshake. Others called it the watcher's beat. I preferred to see it for what it genuinely was: the sound of intelligence breathing in the dark. No natural process could sustain a perfectly timed signal across millions of miles for weeks unceasingly. Something was operating that machine. By December, 3 Atlas reemerged from behind the sun, not where we anticipated, Its trajectory had altered ever so slightly, sufficiently enough to confirm that it had adjusted its course. The models that once predicted a smooth hyperbolic escape now illustrated a stable elliptical orbit. It had intentionally slowed down. It had made a choice to remain. The news sent shockwaves through the scientific community. There was no explosion, no jets of gas, no visible mechanism to account for the deceleration. Yet the data was irrefutable. The solar system had acquired a new permanent resident, and it wasn't natural. That night, I lingered in the observatory long after everyone had departed. Outside, the desert sky was perfectly still. I pondered the implications not merely for science, but for humanity. Every civilization that has ever gazed at the expansive night sky has wondered about their solitude. Now, we had the answer, yet it was not comfort we found. It was the quiet dread of being seen by something far older, far grander, and utterly silent. World governments participated in their classic response to uncertainty. They convened in secrecy. The overarching question was no longer what it was, but rather what we ought to do. Should we reply? Should we send a signal in return? Or should we maintain silence, acting as if we hadn't noticed? The discussions were intense. SETI researchers urged for communication, while military advisors cautioned against the unknown. Philosophers spoke of destiny, and physicists discussed probabilities, highlighting a core human flaw. We debate from positions of fear and hope, while the data simply exists. The object remains unmoved in its orbit, while 3 Atlas watched and waited. Then came a revelation that shifted everything. The European Space Agency's deep scan sensors picked up faint radio echoes reflecting off the object's surface. Upon converting them into images, the structure appeared geometric, not random or chaotic. Hexagonal ridges, symmetrical angles, smooth planes extending miles. Nature does not create symmetry at such scale, but intelligence does. Those images were never officially shown to the public. Yet leaks respond to the light within days. The internet buzzed with theories. Terms like mothership, observation post, extraterrestrial probe permeated every corner of the web. Speculation raced faster than light, and fascination overtook fear. Some viewed it as peaceful, a cosmic archivist chronicling life's history. Others viewed it as something sinister, a sentinel awaiting a cue to act. I strive to remain grounded in data, but the reality is that figures only carry you so far. A moment arrives when numbers yield to meaning, when the boundary between observation and understanding begins to dissolve. If 3 Atlas is artificial, this implies its makers exist beyond the restrictions we experience. They mastered interstellar travel 8,000 years prior, before the pyramids, before the wheel, before humanity even had writing. To them, we are not a new civilization. We are an experiment reaching maturity. This realization feels suffocating. We've consistently viewed ourselves as explorers, the first species bold enough to reach for the stars. What if, in reality, we are the experiment, a culture under observation, perhaps even under scrutiny? What if 3 Atlas isn't just observing us, but waiting for a response we've already submitted? We have sent forth signals, melodies, mathematics, our coordinates inscribed on golden discs aboard Voyager and Pioneer. We declared to the cosmos who we are and where to find us. The universe didn't reciprocate until now. What if this represents the answer arriving not as a greeting, but as an assessment? This brings me back to the dark forest hypothesis, the notion that every civilization in the universe stays silent for fear of annihilation by another. If that holds true, then humanity has already violated the sole rule of survival. We spoke, we shouted, we declared ourselves loudly in every direction. Perhaps now something ancient has turned its gaze upon us. When I contemplate that forest, the vast void filled with unseen predators, I wonder if silence was ever a possibility for us. Maybe our curiosity serves as both our greatest asset and our gravest flaw. We peer into the unknown out of necessity, even when it frightens us, even when the shadows beneath it stare back. 3 Atlas continues its orbit today, locked in a position providing an unobstructed view of Earth. Every 47 seconds, the pulse persists steady, unwavering. Some view it as merely background noise, while others believe it to be a signal awaiting a response. For me, it serves as a reminder. a reminder that the universe is not obligated to grant us comfort, only the truth. We constructed radio telescopes to listen for voices among the stars, hoping to discover reflections of ourselves. However, what we uncovered instead is a mirror held by something that may not grasp or may comprehend too well who we are. Perhaps we were never meant to find them. Perhaps the silence of the cosmos was a form of mercy. Yet, I cannot stop watching. Each night, data streams across the monitor's electromagnetic readings, orbital alterations, temperature signatures. I tell myself nightly that we'll uncover a natural explanation. But deep down, I already discern the pattern, the symmetry, the rhythm. They all murmur the same impossible truth. We are not the first to gaze at the stars. We are merely the latest to be acknowledged. This represents the essence of scientific integrity, to pursue the data even when it leads to a conclusion that is profoundly uncomfortable. To reject the data is dogma, not science. And the evidence on 3 Atlas is loud and clear. Therefore, I conclude with a question, not just for science, but for humanity. What action should we take now that the universe has responded? Do we dare to reach out into the dark once more? Or do we finally learn to keep silent in the forest? Whatever path we choose, one certainty remains. 3 Atlas will continue to orbit, quietly watching, patiently, as it has for millennia. Perhaps it waits for us to evolve enough to comprehend. Or perhaps it anticipates something else, a signal, a threshold, a choice yet to be made. Maybe the cosmos doesn't need to conquer us through force or conflict. Perhaps all it needs is for us to recognize how small we truly are. And in that recognition, we might finally see what has always been present. The universe is not vacant. It is alive, aware, and for the first time in history, it is gazing back at us. The lesson here is profound. We must not permit our arrogance or loneliness in the universe to blind us to the data. The universe is not required to match our expectations. Our task as scientists and as humans is to possess the humility to accept the evidence, no matter how extraordinary it may seem. We must be ready to confront the anomalous data, the hoofbeats in the desert, and sincerely consider that it may not be a horse. What are your thoughts? Is 3 Atlas a natural phenomenon, or is it the evidence we've been hoping for or dreading? Share your theories in the comments below. And if you wish to keep exploring the universe's grand questions, make sure to subscribe.